We now move to debate on part 2.
Phil Twight. Thank you, Mr Chairman. I want to make it very clear at the outset that part 2 is the reason that Labor is opposing this bill. We believe that part 1, while its contents are underwhelming, and we've gone into detail about the inadequacies of the Housing Accords and Special Housing Areas policy, nevertheless, it's better than nothing. That's our view, and we were willing to support it, particularly in the interests of not delaying or creating uncertainty and cost for a handful of developers in Auckland whose special housing areas could be held up without the assistance with the transition that this bill would offer. So, yep, at a pinch, we're willing to support part 1, and we voted at the end of the debate on part 1. But we have a whole different view about part 2. And we're going to now go into considerable detail about what part 2 does, the implications that it has, and why it's completely unacceptable for part 2 to be being pushed through under urgency and denied the proper scrutiny that a select committee hearing would give it. What does part 2 do? It seeks to, in the words of the Minister, clarify the government's power that the Minister asserts the government already has to use or dispose of government land for state housing purposes without triggering the offer-back requirements under the Public Works Act. That's what it does in a nutshell. Now, I am shocked that this national government that professes to have some kind of commitment to private property rights would take away, would disenfranchise the rights of citizens under the Public Works Act to be offered back property that is being used for a purpose that is different to what the land was originally acquired for. It doesn't surprise me that much that this current national government is doing that, but I would ask members in the House, like Paul Goldsmith, like David Seymour, who profess some kind of commitment to the basic tenets of classical liberal thinking, of some kind of respect for private property rights. But no, David Seymour, and Paul Goldsmith, they come here meek as lambs, corralled by Nick Smith to vote for this tawdry, unsavoury confiscation of people's private property rights. And I want to hear what David Seymour has to say about this bill. He is the self-appointed conscience of the nation's private property rights, but he's coming to this House to vote for this bill that confiscates people's private property rights without even the luxury of going off to a select committee so that this bill can be picked apart by expert opinion and public submission. Paul Goldsmith, I hope you will take a call on this bill and explain how the confiscation of private property rights under this bill actually tallies with your professed commitment to the principles of Ayn Rand and Milton Friedman and God knows who else. So I want to hear that explanation. Nick Smith says that the government already has the power, that there's no question, the government already has the power to dispose of land for state housing purposes, that it's simply a clarification. So why are we here, Minister? Why is this bill being pushed through the House, all stages, under urgency? That is the question that Grant Robertson put to the Minister earlier, I think in the second stages. And uncharacteristically, Nick Smith didn't have anything to say. Well, we appreciate the fact that the Minister's in the chair, but I hope he's going to get up and answer some of these questions, because I don't think we've heard yet a satisfactory explanation for why these provisions that would deny people who were former owners of property that was acquired under the Public Works Act, subsequently used for a different purpose, and then finally used as part of some housing development, would be denied the normal rights under the Public Works Act to be offered back that land. Now, we're not, Mr. Chairman.
Phil Twyford.
We are not unnuanced in this issue. We believe, and the Minister will know when he publicly raised the need for an urban development authority to have rights of acquisition of land to deny land bankers the opportunity to hold out, to game the system and make massive windfall gains at the expense of significant urban developments.
Order, I am going to interrupt the member now and invite him to address part 2 of this bill, not matters which are outside it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the point I was trying to make is that on this side of the House, we are not unnuanced on this issue. A case can be made that that public agencies should be able to acquire land, to accumulate land, to in the interests of housing developments. But if you're going to do that, then why not take it to Select Committee? Why not allow the best expert opinion in the land? Why not allow public submitters to come to the table, have that debate, weigh up the issues, consider what the safeguards might be, and do it transparently so that debate can be properly had. So the House can have confidence that this is not just another Nick Smith housing fiasco in the making. Because the provenance of this part in this bill, the provenance is the fiasco around Ngāti Whātua and the Auckland Tamaki Collective, when the very same approach that's embodied in Part 2 was used to try and sideline the rights that Auckland iwi have under their collective redress agreements to have the right of first refusal when government land is being repurposed for a housing development. And the Minister and the Chair, his failure to properly consult those people and respect their legal rights, the rights of first refusal, that cost the taxpayer who knows how much, tens of thousands of dollars, probably more than $100,000, delayed a housing development scheme, desperately needed houses, were delayed by months and months and months because of that minister's attempt to use the very same device to ignore the rights of first refusal of Auckland iwi. Now, in Part 2, it states very clearly that nothing in this bill will impinge on the rights that iwi have under agreements for collective redress. But the same privilege is not being accorded to former owners of land that is now held by the government and is being repurposed for housing development. So there's an apparent double standard there, and I ask the Minister to explain why it's okay to protect the rights of iwi for their rights of first refusal under treaty settlement agreements or collective redress, but somehow it's not worth protecting the rights of private citizens under the Public Works Act, who have, under sections 40 and 41 under the Public Works Act, the right to have that public land offered back to them. That is an apparent double standard, and I ask the Minister to get up and explain why that is. It's not good enough that there is apparently incorrect and conflicting information in the departmental disclosure statement. It's not good enough that there isn't a regulatory impact statement that deals with the confiscation of private property rights in this bill that is being pushed through the House under urgency. I want to hear from the National Party members, including the Minister, why that's okay when they come to this House frequently and talk a big game about private property rights, why it's okay to take away those rights from private citizens in a bill that is being pushed through the House under all stages in urgency.
Mr. Chairman.
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Chair.